I didn't believe in fate until the moment I walked through the wrong door. The restaurant hummed with quiet elegance, crystal chandeliers casting amber light across white tablecloths, the soft clink of wine glasses, murmured conversations in Italian and English blending into a sophisticated lullaby. I'd been here 3 times before, always for the same reason: photographing engagement parties for couples who could afford to rent out the private dining rooms upstairs. Tonight was supposed to be simple: capture the moment, get paid, go home. I adjusted my camera strap and checked my phone. Room 7, second floor. The text from my client had been clear, but when I pushed through the heavy oak door, the room I entered was nothing like the romantic setup I'd expected. 6 men sat around a table covered in documents, cash, and guns. The air smelled like cigar smoke and expensive cologne. Every head turned toward me in perfect synchrony, faces hardening into masks of cold calculation. My fingers froze on the doorknob. Wrong room, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. But before I could retreat, one man rose from his seat at the head of the table. He moved with the kind of control that made my pulse stumble. Slow, deliberate, predatory. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than my car. His face was all sharp angles and shadows, dark hair swept back, jaw tight with authority. His eyes locked onto mine. Gray. Storm cloud gray. "Stay," he commanded. It wasn't a request. My survival instincts screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. The other men exchanged glances, some amused, others wary. One of them, a stocky man with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, leaned forward. "Boss, she's seen—" I said stay. The man's voice dropped lower, silencing the room instantly. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. His gaze traveled from my face to the camera hanging around my neck, then back to my eyes. A muscle in his jaw ticked. "What's your name?" he asked. I'm just a photographer. I'm supposed to be in room 7. This is a mistake." My words tumbled out too fast, desperate. He stepped closer. The space between us compressed into something suffocating. "Your name?" "Isla." The truth escaped before I could think better of it. "Isla Chen." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. He glanced at the men behind him, then back at me. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted into something almost theatrical. "Gentlemen," he announced, his eyes never leaving mine. "It seems fate has answered my declaration." Confusion rippled through the room. I didn't understand what was happening, but every cell in my body recognized danger. He moved even closer, close enough that I could see the silver threading through his dark hair at the temples, the faint scar along his jawline. Close enough to smell cedarwood and smoke. "3 minutes ago," he said quietly, "just for me, I made a vow to my associates. I told them the first woman who walks through that door would be my wife." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Congratulations, Isla Chen. You've just become engaged to Dante Moretti." The room tilted. I knew that name. Everyone in the city knew that name. Whispered in back alleys and courtrooms, printed in newspapers alongside words like alleged and investigation and organized crime. The Moretti family controlled half the waterfront, owned judges and politicians, made people disappear. "No," I breathed. "No, I can't. This is insane." Dante's expression didn't change. "You have 2 choices. Accept this arrangement and stay under my protection, or walk out that door and become a liability I cannot afford." The threat hung in the air between us, unspoken but crystal clear. I'd seen too much. Witnessed a meeting I was never supposed to see. If I left, I'd be silenced. Permanently. My camera suddenly felt heavy against my chest. My art, my livelihood, my stupid mistake of reading 7 as 8 had just shattered my entire existence. How long? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Until the situation resolves itself. That's not an answer. His eyes darkened with what might have been respect. No, it's not. Behind him, the scarred man stood abruptly. Dante, this is madness. We can't just… Marco. Dante's voice cracked like a whip. Leave us. But… now. The room emptied in seconds, men filing out with wary glances in my direction. Marco lingered longest, his expression caught between concern and suspicion, before finally following the others. The door clicked shut. Silence pressed down on us, broken only by the distant sound of music from the restaurant below. Dante circled me slowly, assessing, and I forced myself to stay still, to meet his gaze when he came back around. You're afraid? He observed. I'm smart. The corner of his mouth lifted. That will make this easier. Make what easier? Pretending to be your fiancé? I don't even know you. You'll learn. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then pocketed it again. My driver will take you home tonight. Pack a bag. Enough for 2 weeks. Tomorrow you move into my estate. I have a life, a business. I can't just… You can. His tone left no room for argument. Your business will continue. You'll have everything you need. But you will not be alone, Isla. Not for a moment. Do you understand? The weight of his words settled over me like chains. Protection and imprisonment wrapped in the same package. Why? I demanded. Why make that declaration at all? Why me? For the first time, something vulnerable flickered across his features. There and gone so fast I almost missed it. Because, he said quietly, sometimes the only way to control fate is to challenge it. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. The calculated businessman vanished, replaced by something colder, deadlier. Change of plans, he said, already moving toward the door. We're leaving. Now. What? Why? The window exploded inward. Glass shattered across the room in a glittering spray. I screamed, throwing my arms up instinctively as Dante lunged toward me. His body collided with mine, taking us both down to the floor behind the overturned table. The impact knocked the breath from my lungs. Above us, bullets punched through the walls. Rapid, methodical, deadly. Dante covered me completely, his weight pressing me into the hardwood, his hand cradling the back of my head. I could feel his heartbeat against my spine, steady and strong despite the chaos. Stay down, he growled into my ear. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it began. In the ringing silence that followed, I heard shouting from the hallway, running footsteps, the distant wail of sirens. Dante shifted, checking me quickly for injuries. His hands moved across my shoulders, down my arms, efficient and impersonal. Are you hurt? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My entire body shook. Isla. His hands framed my face, forcing me to look at him. Are you hurt? No. Good. He pulled me to my feet as Marco and 2 other men burst into the room, weapons drawn. Dante issued orders in rapid Italian, his arm still around my waist, keeping me close. Someone had just tried to kill him. Or me. Or both of us. And I realized with horrible clarity that walking through that wrong door hadn't just changed my life. It had marked me for death. Dante turned to me, his expression unreadable. Still think this is madness? I stared at the shattered window, at the bullet holes in the walls, at the blood on my hands from where I'd cut them on glass. Yes, I whispered. He nodded slowly, as if he'd expected that answer. Then we understand each other. He guided me toward the door, his grip firm but not painful. Welcome to my world, Isla Chen. Try to survive it. The SUV's leather seats smelled like danger and money. I sat rigid in the back, my camera bag clutched to my chest like a shield, while Dante spoke quietly into his phone in Italian. His tone was controlled, almost bored, as if discussing attempted murder was as routine as ordering coffee. Maybe for him, it was. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw glass exploding, felt the weight of his body protecting mine, heard the sharp crack of bullets. I'd photographed hundreds of events, weddings, parties, corporate gatherings, but I'd never captured violence, never witnessed it, never been its target. Drink this. Dante pressed a bottle of water into my hands without looking at me, still focused on his conversation. I drank mechanically, the cold liquid doing nothing to wash away the metallic taste of fear. Through the tinted windows, the city slid past, familiar streets transformed into something sinister by the darkness and my new perspective. We weren't heading toward my apartment in the arts district. We were driving toward the hills, where estates hid behind iron gates and privacy walls. Dante ended his call and finally turned his attention to me. In the dim interior light, his features looked carved from stone. Beautiful and merciless. "That was meant for me," he said. "Not you. But now they know you were there. They saw us together. Which means I'm a target too." My voice came out flat, emotionless. Shock, probably. "Yes." "Who were they?" "Rivals. Enemies. Take your pick." He unbuttoned his jacket, revealing a shoulder holster I hadn't noticed before. The Moretti family has been at war for 3 generations. Tonight was just another move on the board. And I'm what? A pawn? His eyes met mine, and something in them made my breath catch. "No, Isla. You're the queen. Unexpected, powerful, and absolutely essential to keep safe." The SUV turned through massive gates that swung open automatically. The driveway stretched ahead, lined with manicured hedges and old-growth trees. At the end sat a mansion that belonged in a European magazine. 3 stories of pale stone, arched windows glowing with warm light, a fountain in the circular courtyard. Beautiful, isolated, a gilded cage. "This is your home?" I asked. "For now, it's ours." The possessive pronoun sent an unwanted shiver down my spine. I was exhausted, terrified, and utterly unprepared for whatever was about to happen. The driver, a silent man with military posture, opened my door. Dante appeared at my side before I could step out, his hand at the small of my back, guiding me up the stone steps. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman in her 60s stood in the entrance, her silver hair pulled into an elegant bun, her expression warm despite the late hour. "Dante," she said, her accent thick with Italian origins. "You're late, and you brought—" Her eyes widened slightly as they landed on me. "Oh. Rosa, this is Isla Chen. She'll be staying with us." Dante's tone brooked no questions. "Prepare the East Wing guest suite, and have Dr. Marchetti come by in the morning." "I don't need a doctor," I protested. He ignored me. "Isla, this is Rosa. She manages the household. Anything you need, ask her." Rosa studied me with shrewd eyes that seemed to see everything I was trying to hide. The fear, the confusion, the barely contained panic. Then her expression softened. "Come, Cara," she said gently, reaching for my arm. "Let's get you settled. You've had a terrible night." I glanced back at Dante, who was already pulling out his phone again, his attention shifting to whatever crisis management awaited. He looked up briefly, our eyes meeting across the marble foyer. "Sleep," he ordered. "Tomorrow, we talk." Then he disappeared down a hallway, leaving me with Rosa and the overwhelming reality of my new prison. The guest suite was larger than my entire apartment. Rosa moved through the space efficiently, turning on lamps, opening curtains to reveal a balcony overlooking gardens I couldn't see in the darkness. She laid out towels in the adjoining bathroom, found clothes that would fit me, expensive things that must have belonged to someone else, and spoke softly the entire time. "Mr. Moretti is a good man," she said, smoothing the bed covers. "Complicated, yes. Dangerous, certainly. But good. You'll see." "I'm not actually engaged to him," I blurted. "This is all... it's not real." Rosa's smile was knowing. "Sometimes the realest things start as pretend, Kara. Now, do you need anything else? Food? Tea?" "Answers." She patted my hand. "Those will come. Rest first." After she left, I stood in the center of the enormous bedroom, my camera bag still clutched against my chest. Slowly, carefully, I set it down on a velvet chair and sank onto the edge of the bed. I should call someone. My assistant, my clients, my landlord. Cancel tomorrow's shoots. Explain... what? That I'd been accidentally engaged to a mob boss after witnessing something I shouldn't have, then nearly killed by his enemies. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your apartment is being watched. Your phone is now secured. Don't contact anyone outside this household. D." I stared at the message, then at the door. Guards probably stood outside. Windows likely alarmed. Every exit monitored. I was safe. I was trapped. The difference felt paper thin. I moved to the balcony doors, pushing them open to breathe air that didn't smell like fear. The gardens stretched into darkness, but I could hear water, a fountain or stream, and smell jasmine. Peaceful. Deceptive. "Can't sleep?" I spun around. Dante stood in my doorway, jacket gone, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He'd removed his tie, and the top buttons of his shirt hung open. He looked less like a mob boss and more like a man carrying the weight of impossible choices. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "It's my house." "You know what I mean." He stepped onto the balcony, keeping a careful distance between us. "I wanted to make sure you were all right. Rosa said you seemed... fragile." "I'm not fragile. I'm furious." That almost smile flickered across his face again. "Better. Anger will keep you sharp." We stood in silence, the night pressing around us. I could feel the heat of him despite the space, the magnetic pull that defied all logic. He'd dragged me into hell, threatened my life, stolen my freedom. So why did part of me want to step closer? "How long have you known?" I asked quietly. "That they were coming for you tonight?" His jaw tightened. "I didn't know the when, only the inevitability." "And that declaration? About the first woman through the door?" "A test." He turned to face me fully, and in the moonlight, his eyes were silver. "My father used to say that the universe speaks in signs. I needed... direction. An answer to a question I've been avoiding." "What question?" "Whether I should secure an alliance through marriage or trust my instincts." His gaze held mine. "Then you walked in. So I'm what? Your instinct? You're a complication I can't afford and won't surrender." He moved closer, and my breath caught. "Someone wants me dead, Isla. They'll use anyone close to me to make that happen. By claiming you publicly, I've protected you and marked you simultaneously." "That's insane." "Yes." He reached out, his fingers brushing a cut on my cheek I hadn't realized was there, glass from the explosion. The touch was gentle, at odds with everything else about him. "But you're alive, and you'll stay that way." His hand lingered. My skin burned where he touched me. "I didn't ask for this," I whispered. "I know. I should hate you. You should." But I couldn't look away, couldn't step back. The air between us crackled with something dark and magnetic, the kind of attraction that spelled disaster. Dante's phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He checked it, his expression hardening. "What?" I asked. "They found your apartment, ransacked it. They're looking for something. I don't have anything. I'm a photographer. They don't know that. He pulled back, creating distance again. Which means tomorrow, we make this engagement very public, very real. So everyone understands that touching you means war with me. He walked to the door, pausing at the threshold. Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone but Rosa. Dante? He looked back. Why did you cover me tonight? You could have let me... No. The word was absolute. I couldn't. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with jasmine-scented air and the terrifying realization that somewhere between the gunfire and the moonlight, the lines between captor and protector had started to blur. Morning arrived with the sound of birds and the smell of espresso. I'd barely slept. Every creak of the house had jolted me awake, heart racing, expecting armed men or explosions. But the night had passed quietly, and dawn filtered through sheer curtains like honey, painting everything gold. Someone had left a tray outside my door. Strong coffee, fresh pastries, fruit. A note in elegant handwriting. Breakfast at 9. Rosa will bring you down. D. I showered in the palatial bathroom, washing away the residue of fear and glass dust. The clothes laid out for me fit perfectly. Cream silk blouse, tailored black pants, understated but expensive. Someone had studied me carefully. Rosa knocked at 8:45. Good morning, Kara. You look better. Some color in your cheeks. She smiled warmly. Come, Mr. Moretti is waiting in the solarium. The house looked different in daylight. Less intimidating, more lived in. Family photographs lined the hallways, though I noticed most featured older faces, previous generations. Art hung on every wall. Original pieces that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. The solarium was a glass-enclosed room overlooking the gardens, filled with light and greenery. Dante sat at a wrought iron table, laptop open, phone in hand, still issuing orders to someone I couldn't see. He'd shaved, dressed in a charcoal suit, looking every inch the legitimate businessman. Until you noticed the gun holstered at his hip. He ended his call as Rosa guided me to a chair. Thank you, Rosa. That will be all. She squeezed my shoulder reassuringly before leaving us alone. You slept? He asked. Not really. Neither did I. He poured coffee into a porcelain cup, adding cream without asking how I took it. When I tasted it, the ratio was perfect. He'd paid attention last night. Your apartment has been secured, he said, sliding seamlessly into business mode. My men swept it. They took anything that might be useful. Contracts, client lists, personal effects. Everything will be brought here. They went through my things. They were professionals. Nothing was damaged. He pulled out his phone, swiped through screens, then turned it to show me. These are the surveillance photos from last night. The men who shot at us. I looked at the grainy images. 3 faces, hard and unfamiliar. Who are they? Hired guns, the Calabrese family's style. They've been pushing into our territory for months, testing boundaries. He took the phone back. This morning, we send a message. What message? He opened his laptop, angling the screen toward me. A press release, professionally formatted, ready to publish. Moretti family announces engagement. Dante Moretti, CEO of Moretti Enterprises, is pleased to announce his engagement to photographer Isla Chen. The couple plans an intimate ceremony this spring. Below the text sat a photo. Of me. From last night. Somehow, despite the chaos, someone had captured an image of Dante and me in the restaurant doorway. His arm around my waist, my face tilted up toward his. The lighting perfect. The composition intimate. We looked like lovers. When was this taken? I demanded. Marco has a photographer's eye. Dante's tone was unapologetic. The moment you walked through that door, I knew we'd need documentation. This is insane. People will see through this. My clients, my friends, will congratulate you on landing one of the city's most eligible bachelors. He closed the laptop. Isla, this has to be convincing, which means you need to understand exactly who I am. He stood, offering his hand. Come with me. I hesitated. Taking his hand felt like acceptance, like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But curiosity won over caution. I placed my palm in his. His fingers closed warm and firm around mine. He led me through the house, down corridors I hadn't seen, past rooms I glimpsed but didn't enter. Finally, we reached a heavy wooden door. He pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner, and locks clicked open. My office, he said. No one enters without permission. The room inside was dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk with multiple monitors. But what caught my attention was the wall opposite the desk, covered entirely in maps, photographs, strings connecting faces and locations like a detective's conspiracy board. This is our world, Dante said quietly. My world. He walked me through it, explaining with clinical precision. The Moretti family tree, going back 4 generations. Their businesses, some legitimate, others carefully hidden behind shell companies. Their allies, their enemies, the precarious balance of power that kept the city from erupting into open war. We're not the Mafia from movies, he said. We're businessmen who operate in gray spaces. We control imports, construction contracts, unions. We pay off officials who need paying off, and we eliminate problems that threaten our operations. You mean people? Sometimes? He didn't flinch from the truth. But less often than you'd think. Death is messy, expensive, and draws attention. We prefer leverage. And me? What am I? Leverage? He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. You were supposed to be nothing, an accident, a wrong turn. His hand rose, fingers tracing the cut on my cheek with devastating gentleness. But the moment they shot at us, you became everything. I don't understand. The Calabresi family now believes you matter to me, which means you do. His thumb brushed my jawline. Perception creates reality in my world, Isla. And the perception is that Dante Moretti chose you, protected you, claimed you. But it's not real. Isn't it? His voice dropped to a murmur. I've built my entire empire on controlled decisions, calculated moves. Nothing random, nothing impulsive. His other hand came up, framing my face. Then you walked through that door, and for the first time in 15 years, I made a choice based purely on instinct. My heart hammered against my ribs. What instinct? That you were important, that you were meant to be there. His forehead nearly touched mine, our breaths mingling. I don't believe in fate, Isla, but I believe in recognition. And I recognized something in you the moment our eyes met. I should pull away. Should demand he stop touching me, stop saying things that made me feel unsteady and dangerous. But my hands had somehow found his chest, fingers curling into the expensive fabric of his shirt. You're dangerous, I whispered. Yes. You've killed people. Yes. I should run. You can't. Not a threat, a simple truth. And I think you don't want to. He was right. God help me, he was right. The kiss happened so slowly I could have stopped it. Could have turned away. But I didn't. His lips met mine with devastating control. Firm, warm, tasting like coffee and sin. My body responded before my mind could catch up, melting into him, hands sliding up to his shoulders. He kissed like he did everything else, with absolute authority and hidden tenderness. One hand tangled in my hair while the other pressed against the small of my back, holding me against him. I felt the gun at his hip, the hard muscle beneath his clothes, the barely restrained power. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. That shouldn't have happened, I said. No. He didn't look sorry. But it did. A knock at the door shattered the moment. Marco's voice filtered through. Boss, the press release is ready, and we have a problem. Dante's expression shifted instantly, the tender man vanishing behind the cold strategist. What problem? The Calabrese sent flowers, to the house, for your fiancé. I felt the tension coil through Dante's body. What kind of flowers? White lilies. The air turned arctic. Dante released me, moving to his desk with lethal grace. Funeral flowers. They're sending a message. What message? My voice came out shakier than I wanted. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something like regret flicker across his features. That they intend to make you a widow before you ever become a wife. Marco entered, carrying a massive arrangement of white lilies, their sickly sweet scent filling the room. Attached was a card in elegant script. Congratulations on your engagement. Such a shame about tragic accidents. See, Dante plucked the card from the flowers, his jaw tight. Then, with controlled violence, he swept the entire arrangement off Marco's hands, sending it crashing to the floor. Double the guards, he ordered. No one approaches this house without clearance. And Marco... His voice dropped to something lethal. Find out who delivered these. I want to know every step they took from the Calabrese estate to my door. Already on it, boss. After Marco left, Dante stood amid the scattered lilies, his hands clenched into fists. I watched him struggle with something. Rage, fear, calculation. This is what I am, he said without looking at me. What I bring into your life. Death threats disguised as gifts. A target painted on your back. You still want to stay? I looked at the ruined flowers, at the man who'd kissed me like I mattered, and now stood rigid with the weight of protecting me. I don't have a choice, I said. He turned then, his eyes burning with something fierce. There's always a choice, Isla. Then I choose to survive, whatever it takes. Something like pride flickered across his face. Good. Because starting today, you become someone the Calabrese family will regret threatening. He moved toward me, all predator again. Today we make you into Dante Moretti's most dangerous weapon. How? His smile was sharp as broken glass. We make them believe you're the only thing I've ever loved. The transformation began with clothes. Rosa brought in a stylist, a thin woman named Gianna with sharp eyes and sharper opinions, who circled me like I was a sculpture needing refinement. She has good bones, Gianna pronounced in heavily accented English. Strong features. We play up the elegance, the mystery. Make her look like she belongs in his world. I'm standing right here, I protested. Gianna ignored me, already pulling dresses from garment bags. Mr. Moretti wants you ready for the engagement party tonight. City's elite will be there. You need to look untouchable. Tonight? I looked at Rosa, who offered an apologetic smile. Dante didn't mention... He's been making calls all morning, Kara. Pulling favors, issuing invitations. This party sends a message. Anyone who touches you answers to him. The dress Gianna selected was midnight blue silk that clung to my curves before flowing to the floor. Elegant. Expensive. Armor disguised as fashion. She paired it with diamonds. Actual diamonds. Borrowed from some Moretti vault that glittered at my throat and ears. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Perfect, Gianna declared. Now you look like you could destroy a man's empire with one smile. I don't want to destroy anything. I want my life back. Rosa's reflection met mine in the mirror. Sometimes, Kara, we get better lives than the ones we planned. Before I could respond, Dante appeared in the doorway. He'd been gone all morning, handling whatever crisis management required his attention. And now he stood frozen, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Leave us," he said quietly. Gianna and Rosa exchanged knowing glances before disappearing. The door clicked shut. Dante moved closer, circling me the way Gianna had, but his inspection felt different, intimate, possessive, hungry. When he stopped in front of me, his eyes had darkened to steel. "You look—" He trailed off, jaw tight. "Expensive?" I supplied. "Like property?" "Like mine." The words came out rough. He caught himself, stepping back. "Which is the point?" "Right. The performance." No, I get it." I turned away from the mirror, from the stranger wearing my face. "Tonight I smile and play the adoring fiancé while your enemies calculate how to use me against you." "Then what? How long does this charade continue?" "Until they stop seeing you as leverage and start seeing you as untouchable." "And when is that?" "I don't know." For once, he sounded uncertain. This world doesn't have clean endings. I laughed bitterly. "Great. So I'm stuck in limbo, wearing borrowed diamonds, pretending to love a man I barely know." "You don't have to love me." He moved closer again, his presence overwhelming. "You just have to convince them you do." "How? I'm a photographer, not an actress." His hand rose to my face, tilting my chin up. "Then don't act. Just respond to me the way you did this morning." Heat flooded my cheeks. "That was a mistake." "Was it?" His thumb traced my lower lip, and my breath stuttered. "Because it felt like the first honest thing between us." Before I could answer, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression hardening. "Marco's ready. We need to go over security protocols for tonight." He started to leave, then paused. "Isla, that dress? Don't change. You'll wear it tonight. And try not to let them see you're afraid." "I'm not afraid." "Liar." But he said it almost fondly. "Fear keeps you alive in my world. Just don't let them smell it." The engagement party took place at the Moretti family's private club, a turn-of-the-century building downtown, all marble columns and gilded ceilings. Luxury cars lined the entrance as guests arrived in evening wear, the city's power players emerging from their limos like predators in formal attire. I stood in the entry hall, Dante's hand at the small of my back, while Rosa made last-minute adjustments to my dress. "Remember," Dante murmured, "you're confident, untouchable. You chose me, not the other way around. Except that's the opposite of true. They don't know that." He pressed something cold into my hand. A ring. The engagement ring. A square-cut sapphire surrounded by diamonds, antique and breathtaking. My grandmother's. It fits the narrative. I slid it onto my finger. The weight felt like a shackle. Music drifted from the ballroom, classical, elegant. Through the doorway, I glimpsed the party. Hundreds of guests mingling beneath chandeliers, waiters circulating with champagne, a quartet playing in the corner. Wealth and power condensed into one room. "Ready?" Dante asked. "No." "Good, neither am I." He offered his arm. "Let's give them a show." We entered together, and the room shifted. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Heads turned. I felt the weight of hundreds of eyes assessing, judging, calculating. Dante led me through the crowd with practiced ease, introducing me to faces that blurred together. Judges, businessmen, politicians. Everyone smiled. Everyone congratulated us. And everyone studied me like I was a puzzle they needed to solve. "She's lovely, Dante," an older woman said, her eyes sharp. "Where did you two meet?" "Through fate," Dante replied smoothly. "Sometimes the universe decides for you." How romantic. But her tone suggested she didn't believe in romance. We moved on. More introductions. More scrutiny. My face hurt from smiling. Then Dante tensed beside me. "Matteo Calabrese," he said quietly. 3 o'clock. Don't react." I followed his gaze. A man in his 40s, handsome in a cruel way, stood by the bar watching us. When our eyes met, he smiled and raised his glass in a mock toast. "He came to your engagement party?" I whispered. "He came to assess you, to see if you're worth the effort of killing." Dante's hand tightened on my waist. "Smile at him. Show him you're not afraid." Every instinct screamed at me to look away, to hide. But I thought of the funeral flowers, the bullet holes in the wall, the life I'd lost. Anger surged through me, hot and clarifying. I smiled at Matteo Calabrese, not a scared smile, a challenging one. His expression flickered, surprise, maybe respect. Then Dante was moving, pulling me onto the dance floor as the quartet transitioned into a waltz. His hand found mine, his other arm circling my waist. And suddenly we were dancing. "What are you doing?" I hissed. "Making a statement." He guided me through the steps with the same control he applied to everything else. "Calabrese expected you to cower. You didn't. Now we show him exactly how unified we are." By dancing? By looking at each other like the rest of the world doesn't exist. His eyes locked onto mine, and the ballroom faded. Just us, moving together, his body leading mine with effortless precision. I could feel the gun beneath his jacket, the tension in his shoulders, but also the careful way he held me, protective, possessive. "You're a good dancer," I said. My mother insisted. Said a man who can't dance can't negotiate. His lips curved slightly. She was usually right. "Is she dead 5 years ago?" No emotion in his voice, but his hand tightened. "Cancer. The one enemy I couldn't threaten or buy off." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. She would have liked you." He spun me, pulling me back closer than before. Fierce and stubborn. Those were her favorite qualities. The song ended, but he didn't release me immediately. We stood there, his arms still around my waist, staring at each other while applause rippled through the ballroom. "Mr. Moretti." Marco appeared at our side, his expression grim. "We have a situation." Dante's entire demeanor shifted. "What kind?" "The kind that requires your immediate attention. Upstairs." He looked at me, torn. "Stay with Rosa. Don't leave the ballroom." "Dante, please." The words sounded strange from him, almost desperate. "Just this once. Don't argue." Then he was gone, following Marco through the crowd. Rosa materialized at my elbow, her warm presence reassuring. "Come, Cara. Let's get you some champagne." But before we could move, Matteo Calabrese blocked our path. "Miss Chen," he said smoothly. Or should I say, Mrs. Moretti-to-be. Up close, his eyes were dead. Shark eyes. I wanted to offer my congratulations personally. Rosa's hand tightened on my arm. "Mr. Calabrese, how unexpected to see you here." I wouldn't miss Dante's engagement party for the world. His smile never reached those dead eyes. Though I must admit I'm surprised. Dante's always been so particular about his acquisitions. "You must be very special." "She is," Rosa said firmly. "Now if you'll excuse us." "Just one moment." He stepped closer, and I smelled expensive cologne and something underneath. Violence, barely contained. "A word of advice, Miss Chen. This world Dante inhabits, it's not for the faint of heart. People disappear. Accidents happen. Sometimes the safest choice is to walk away before you get hurt." "Is that a threat?" The words escaped before I could stop them. His eyebrows rose. "A threat? No, Cara. A courtesy. Between friends. We're not friends. Not yet." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. "But we could be. If you ever tire of playing the Moretti family's pet, my door is always open. Then he was gone, melting back into the crowd. I stood frozen, my heart racing. Rosa guided me to a quiet corner, pressing a glass of champagne into my trembling hands. "What just happened?" I asked. Rosa's face was grim. "He just declared war, and he used you to do it." Dante didn't return to the party. After an hour of forced smiles and meaningless small talk, Rosa finally took pity on me and guided me through service corridors to a private elevator. We rode in silence to the 3rd floor, where Marco stood guard outside a closed door. "Is he—" I started. "Handling business," Marco said tersely. "Best you wait in the residence, Miss Chen." "I want to see him." "Not advisable." "I don't care." I stepped toward the door, and Marco moved to block me. We stared at each other, me and my borrowed diamonds, him with his scarred face and cold assessment. Finally, he stepped aside. "Your funeral." I pushed through the door. The room beyond was clearly a private office, smaller than the one at the estate, but no less intense. Dante stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand braced against the glass. His jacket hung over a chair, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He looked exhausted. "Don't care what it costs," he was saying. "Lock down the shipment routes, every single one. If Calabrese wants a war, we'll give him one he can't win." He paused, listening, then his voice dropped to something lethal. "Then make them understand. Use whatever leverage necessary. I want answers by dawn." He ended the call and finally noticed me. Something flickered across his face, surprise, then concern. "You shouldn't be here." Calabrese approached me. Downstairs. He threatened me. Dante went very still. "What did he say?" I repeated the conversation word for word, watching his expression darken with each sentence. By the time I finished, his hands had curled into fists. "He touched you?" "No. Just talked." "Just talked." He laughed bitterly. "That's how it starts, Isla. Words first, then escalation." He moved to the desk, pulled out his phone, and fired off a text. "I'm doubling your security detail. You don't go anywhere without guards, not even in the house." "Dante, this is exactly what I feared." He rounded on me, and I saw genuine fear beneath the anger. "They're testing boundaries, seeing how close they can get before I react." "So react. Isn't that what you do? Threaten them back?" "It's not that simple." "Then make it simple." My voice echoed in the small space. We stared at each other, the tension crackling between us like lightning about to strike. "You want simple?" He moved toward me, every step deliberate. "Fine. If I retaliate directly, we start a war that will kill dozens of people, many of them innocent. If I don't react, they'll see it as weakness and push harder. There is no simple, Isla. There's only choosing which terrible option costs fewer lives." "Then what do? "We make you disappear." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Not permanently, just strategically." He was already thinking, planning, that calculating mind working through scenarios. "We pull back. Take you somewhere safe, somewhere they can't reach. Let them think they've won, that you ran scared." "Absolutely not. It's the smart play." I said no. I stepped closer, matching his intensity. "You said it yourself. Perception creates reality. If I run, I prove I'm weak, that I'm something to be used against you. Is that what you want?" "I want you alive." "Then teach me how to survive." The words burst out of me, raw and desperate. "Stop trying to hide me away like some damsel in distress. If I'm going to be your weapon, your queen, your whatever, then arm me. Show me how to fight back." He studied me for a long moment, and I watched something shift behind his eyes, calculation giving way to decision. Okay, he said quietly. But if we do this, you follow my rules. Completely. No exceptions. What rules? You don't leave the estate without me or Marco. You learn basic self-defense. You memorize every exit in every building we enter. And you trust me, even when my decisions don't make sense. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. Can you do that? I thought of the funeral flowers, Calabresi's dead eyes, the bullet holes in the wall. Yes. Then we start now. He grabbed his jacket, shrugging into it. Come with me. He took me down to the club's basement, a space that looked more like a bunker than a wine cellar. Concrete walls, reinforced doors, and in the center, a table covered with photographs and maps. Marco was already there, along with two other men I recognized from the estate. They looked up when we entered, surprise flickering across their faces. Boss? Marco said carefully. Are you sure about this? She's already a target, Dante replied. She deserves to understand why. He spread the photographs across the table. This is the Calabresi family. Matteo, you met him. His father, Salvatore, runs the operation. 3 brothers, 2 cousins, all involved in various capacities. He pointed to each face. These are the people who want me dead, who now want you dead. Why? I asked. What did you do? I exist. He pulled out another photo, an older man with kind eyes. 5 years ago, my father made a deal with Salvatore Calabrese. Territory agreements, profit sharing. It kept the peace. Then my father died, and I inherited. Salvatore expected me to honor those agreements. I didn't. Why not? Because they were built on trafficking, human trafficking, women mostly, brought in from Eastern Europe, sold to the highest bidder. His voice was flat, emotionless. My father turned a blind eye. I couldn't. I stared at him, understanding dawning. So you sabotaged their operation. I burned it to the ground, freed 200 women, arrested half his men, and cost him $50 million. A muscle in his jaw ticked. He's wanted revenge ever since. And I walked into the middle of it. Yes. He met my eyes. I'm sorry. The apology caught me off guard. Dante Moretti didn't apologize, didn't show weakness. Yet here he stood, surrounded by his men, telling me the truth. What happens now? I asked. Now we play the long game. He pointed to the map. Calabresi has 3 main operations left: the docks, a casino, and a construction company. All fronts for money laundering. We systematically dismantle them. And me? You stay close. Learn everything. Become someone they underestimate until it's too late. He glanced at Marco. Starting tomorrow, she trains. Boss! That's not a request, Marco. She needs to know how to defend herself. Marco sighed but nodded. Fine, but don't blame me when she shoots you during practice. A ghost of a smile crossed Dante's face. I'm counting on it. We returned to the estate near midnight. The party was over. Guests departed, leaving only silence and shadows. Dante walked me to my room, his hand at the small of my back, that protective touch I was beginning to recognize. At my door, he paused. Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be intense. Dante? He looked at me, and in the dim hallway his features softened. Yes? Thank you, for telling me the truth, for not treating me like I'm fragile. You're the furthest thing from fragile. His hand rose to my face, tracing my cheek with heartbreaking gentleness. You're terrifying, actually. Why? Because you make me want to be honest. His thumb brushed my lower lip. And honesty has never served me well. Before I could respond, he kissed me. Slow and deep, nothing like the controlled kiss in his office. This was raw, messy and desperate, his hands tangling in my hair, my back pressed against the door. I tasted whiskey and need, felt the tremor in his muscles as he held back. When he finally pulled away, we were both breathing hard. "That can't keep happening," I whispered. "I know. We're not really engaged." "I know that too." But his forehead rested against mine, his hands still framing my face. "Doesn't change the fact that I can't stop thinking about you, that I'd burn the world down to keep you safe. You barely know me." "I know enough." He stepped back, and the loss of his warmth felt like grief. "Sleep, Isla. Tomorrow we start making you dangerous." He disappeared down the hallway, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the terrifying realization that somewhere between the gunfire and the truth, I'd stopped seeing him as my captor. I'd started seeing him as the most dangerous man I'd ever wanted. The training began at dawn. Marco met me in the estate's gym, a fully equipped space I hadn't known existed. He'd traded his suit for workout clothes, and without the formal attire, he looked even more dangerous. "We start with basics," he said, no preamble. "Situational awareness. You need to read a room the moment you enter. Exits, threats, weapons." For 2 hours, he drilled me. How to scan a crowd without appearing paranoid. How to position myself near exits. How to identify who carried weapons. How to move through spaces with purpose. "Your body language matters," he explained. "Victims look down, hunch their shoulders, appear small. You walk like you own every room you enter." "Even when I'm terrified?" "Especially then." He demonstrated, head up, shoulders back, steady gaze. "Fear is internal. Never let them see it." After physical training came the harder lessons. Understanding the Moretti family's structure, memorizing faces and names, learning which allies could be trusted, and which were opportunists waiting for weakness. "Dante's built his empire on loyalty and fear," Marco said, pulling up org charts on a tablet. "These families," he pointed, "owe him favors. These ones fear him. These are neutral. And these," his finger landed on Calabresi, "want him dead." "Where do you fit?" I asked. Marco's scarred face remained impassive. "I've known Dante since we were kids. Grew up in the same neighborhood, ran the same streets. He saved my life when I was 16. I'd die for him without hesitation." He met my eyes. "Which means I'll keep you alive, Miss Chen. Because he's decided you matter." "I didn't ask for this." "None of us did. We just make the best of what we're dealt." He closed the tablet. "Break time. 15 minutes." I found Dante in the garden, sitting on a stone bench beneath an oak tree. He'd removed his jacket again, rolled his sleeves, and somehow looked both powerful and peaceful in the dappled sunlight. "How's training?" he asked without turning. "Exhausting. How did you know I was here?" "I always know where you are." He patted the bench beside him. "Sit." I did, leaving careful space between us. Up close, I noticed the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He looked as exhausted as I felt. "When do you sleep?" I asked. "When there's time, which lately is never." He pulled out his phone, checked something, then set it aside with a sigh. 3 operations to dismantle, a war to prevent, and a fiancé to protect. Sleep seems optional. "You don't have to do this alone." "Yes, I do. It's what being the head of the family means." He finally looked at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes made my chest ache. "Everyone depends on my decisions. One wrong move, and people die." "Like the women you saved?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I still see their faces sometimes. The ones we found in shipping containers. Some were barely older than teenagers." His hands clenched. My father knew. He knew and did nothing because the money was too good. When I took over, I swore I'd never be that kind of man. "But you're still a criminal." "Yes." No apology in his voice. "I'm not a hero, Isla. I've hurt people, broken laws, done things that would horrify you, but I have lines I won't cross. And human lives, innocent human lives, are the first line. I studied his profile, the sharp jaw and strong features, the weight of impossible choices written in every line. You're more complicated than you pretend to be. Everyone is. He turned to me, and his hand found mine on the bench. You, for instance. A photographer who charges into danger instead of running. Who challenges a mob boss instead of cowering. Who kisses me back even though you should hate me. Heat flooded my face. That was honest, he interrupted. That's what it was. And it terrifies me. Why? Because I don't do honest, Isla. I manipulate, control, calculate. Feelings are weaknesses in my world. They get people killed. His thumb traced patterns on my palm. But around you? I can't seem to stop feeling. My breath caught. Dante! His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, he checked it, and his expression darkened. We have to go, now. What's wrong? Calabrese just hit one of our warehouses. 3 men dead, millions in products stolen. He was already moving, his gentle mask replaced by the cold strategist. This is the escalation I feared. The warehouse was on the waterfront, a sprawling building surrounded by police tape and flashing lights. Dante had connections, clearly, because we walked straight through the perimeter without challenge. Inside, chaos reigned. Broken crates, blood on the concrete, overturned equipment. Marco met us at the entrance, his face grim. They knew our security protocols, he said. Killed the guards execution style, took everything valuable, burned the rest. Professional hit. Dante moved through the space with controlled fury, assessing damage, barking orders. I stayed close, trying to process the violence. Men had died here. Lives ended because of territory and pride and money. This is what you wanted to see, Dante said quietly, appearing at my side. The reality of my world. People don't just disappear in paperwork. They bleed. I looked at the bloodstains, the bodies covered with sheets, and felt bile rise in my throat. How do you live with this? By making sure it means something. By ensuring their deaths aren't wasted. He pulled me away from the carnage, his hands on my shoulders. Are you going to run now? Now that you've seen what I really am? I should. Every rational part of me screamed to get away from this world of violence and death. But I looked at his eyes, gray and haunted and almost hoping I'd leave, and I understood. He wanted me to run, wanted me safe, even if it meant pushing me away. No, I said. I'm not running. Something cracked in his carefully controlled expression. Isla, you said you'd make me dangerous. That starts with understanding what we're up against. I straightened my spine, channeling everything Marco had taught me. So, what's our next move? Dante stared at me for a long moment, something like wonder flickering across his face. Then he pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me in a fierce embrace. Our next move, he murmured into my hair, is making sure Calabrese regrets ever threatening what's mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bloodstains, the covered bodies, the casual violence. I paced my room, finally giving up and stepping onto the balcony for air. Dante was already there. He stood at the railing, shirt unbuttoned, hair disheveled, holding a glass of what looked like whiskey. He didn't seem surprised to see me. Can't sleep either? He asked. Every time I try, I see the warehouse. He took a drink. It gets easier, eventually. Or you go numb. I'm not sure which is worse. I moved to stand beside him, looking out over the dark gardens. How many people have died because of your wars? Too many. No evasion, just truth. And before you ask, yes, I've killed people myself. Not often, and never without reason. But my hands aren't clean, Isla. They never will be. And you're okay with that? No. His voice was raw. But I've made peace with being the monster who protects against worse monsters. We stood in silence, the night wrapping around us. Finally, I reached out and took the glass from his hand, taking a sip. The whiskey burned going down. Show me, I said. Show you what? The scars. The proof you're human underneath all this control. He looked at me like I'd asked for something impossible. Then slowly he unbuttoned his shirt the rest of the way, letting it fall open. His chest was a map of violence. Bullet scars, knife wounds, what looked like a burn mark across his ribs. Evidence of a life lived in danger. This one, he pointed to a scar near his heart, was from my first real fight. I was 19, stupid, thought I was invincible. Nearly died. My hand rose without permission, fingers tracing the raised skin. He shuddered under my touch. And this? I asked, touching the burn. Punishment. When I refused to hurt someone my father wanted eliminated, he said I needed to learn the cost of mercy. His voice was flat, emotionless. I was 22. I looked up at him, at the shadows in his eyes, and understood. He hadn't chosen this life. It had been beaten into him, scar by scar. You're not him, I whispered. Your father. You're not that man. How do you know? Because that man wouldn't have saved 200 women. Wouldn't have given me a choice. Wouldn't look at me like you're terrified of what I make you feel. His hand came up to cup my face. What do you think you make me feel? Hopeful. And that scares you more than any bullet. He kissed me then, desperate and raw, nothing held back. I tasted whiskey and need, felt the tremor in his hands as he pulled me closer. When he lifted me onto the railing, my legs wrapped around his waist instinctively, and I felt everything. His scars, his heat, his terrible vulnerability. This is a mistake, he breathed against my lips. Probably. I'll hurt you, eventually. It's what I do. Then hurt me honestly instead of lying to protect me. He made a sound low in his throat, half groan, half surrender, and kissed me harder. My hands tangled in his hair, my body pressed against his, and for the first time since walking through that wrong door, I felt something other than fear. I felt alive. When he finally pulled back, we were both shaking. Go inside, he ordered, his voice rough. Before I do something we can't take back. What if I want you to? Isla, I'm not afraid of you, Dante. I slid down from the railing, my hands still on his chest. I should be, but I'm not. He caught my hands, bringing them to his lips. That makes one of us. Then he was gone, disappearing into his own room, leaving me alone with racing pulse and the knowledge that we'd crossed a line tonight. And neither of us wanted to go back. The betrayal came from inside. 3 days after the warehouse attack, Marco burst into the breakfast room where Dante and I sat reviewing security reports. His face was white with rage. We have a rat, he said without preamble. Someone's been feeding information to Calabresi. That's how they knew our protocols. Dante set down his coffee with frightening calm. Proof? Marco threw a manila folder on the table. Communications intercepts, phone records. One of ours has been in contact with Calabresi's lieutenant for weeks. I watched Dante's expression shift from calm to lethal in seconds. Who? Luca Messina, your cousin. The silence that followed was deafening. I knew that name. Luca had been at the engagement party, had congratulated us warmly, had seemed genuinely happy for Dante. Where is he? Dante asked, his voice eerily quiet. Downstairs. He doesn't know we found out. Dante stood, his movements controlled but radiating fury. Bring him to the study. And Marco, Make sure everyone knows. I want them to see what happens to traitors." After Marco left, Dante stood frozen, his hands braced on the table. I could see the war happening behind his eyes. "He's family," I said quietly. "He chose Calabrese over loyalty. That makes him dead." He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw what he would look like when he killed someone. Cold. Empty. "You should go. You don't need to witness this." "No." I stood, moving to his side. "You said you'd show me your world. All of it. I'm staying." "Asla?" "I'm staying." Luca Messina was maybe 30, handsome in a careless way, with Moretti's dark eyes and strong jaw. He smiled when he entered the study, clearly expecting a normal meeting. Then he saw Marco's expression, the guards flanking the door, Dante's cold rage. His smile died. "Dante, I can explain." "Explain what?" Dante's voice was silk over steel. "How you betrayed your family for money? How you gave Calabrese our security protocols? How you got 3 of our men killed?" Luca's face went white. "It's not... I didn't mean..." "You didn't mean for people to die?" Dante moved closer, predatory. "What did you think would happen, Luca? That Calabrese would just use the information for leverage? That blood wouldn't spill? I had debts. He said he'd kill me if I didn't..." "So you chose your life over loyalty." Dante's hand shot out, grabbing Luca by the throat. "Over family. Over everything we stand for." I watched, frozen, as Dante's control shattered. This was the man his father had beaten into submission, the one who'd learned violence as a survival skill. This was the monster he kept carefully caged. "Dante," I said quietly, "don't." He didn't look at me. He betrayed us. He's scared, desperate, like I was when I walked through that door. Now Dante's eyes snapped to mine, confusion flickering through the rage. "What? You gave me a choice. Give him one too. He doesn't deserve..." "Neither did I. But you gave me one anyway." I moved closer, placing my hand over his where it still gripped Luca's throat. "Be the man who saves people, not the one who kills them." For a terrible moment, I thought he wouldn't listen. His fingers tightened and Luca made a choking sound. Then, slowly, Dante released him. Luca collapsed, gasping. "You have 2 options," Dante said, his voice dead. "Option 1, you leave the city. Tonight. You go so far that Calabrese can never find you, and you never contact anyone in this family again. Option 2, I give you to Calabrese as a gift, with a note explaining you were a failed double agent. He'll kill you slowly." Luca looked between us, tears streaming down his face. "I choose. I'll leave. Please." "Marco will escort you to the airport. You take only what you can carry. Everything else, your accounts, your properties, your connections, you forfeit." Dante turned away, dismissing him. "You're dead to us. Officially and permanently." After Luca was dragged out, Marco lingered. "Boss, letting him live is a mistake. He could what? Tell Calabrese we showed mercy?" Dante's laugh was bitter. "Let him. Maybe it'll confuse them enough to make a mistake." Marco left, shaking his head. I approached Dante carefully. He stood by the window, his back to me, radiating tension. "I almost killed him," he said quietly. "I wanted to. Every part of me screamed to make him pay. But you didn't. Because you stopped me." He turned, and the rawness in his expression stole my breath. "Do you understand what that means? For years I've been the final word, the executioner. No one questions my decisions. And then you..." He broke off, running a hand through his hair. "You make me hesitate. You make me human. And that's the most dangerous thing in the world." "Why?" "Because humans make mistakes. They feel too much. They care when they shouldn't." He moved toward me, every step deliberate. I care about you, Isla. More than is smart. More than is safe. And it's going to get us both killed. Then we die trying to be better than this world expects. He stared at me, something breaking in his eyes. Then he was kissing me, desperate and claiming, his hands tangling in my hair, my back hitting the desk. Papers scattered. The world narrowed to his mouth, his touch, his ragged breathing. Tell me to stop, he demanded against my lips. No. His control shattered. He lifted me onto the desk, standing between my legs, his hands everywhere at once. I felt his scars under my fingers, the tension in his muscles, the barely restrained need. Isla, he breathed. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. Good. I pulled him closer. I don't want to go back. The kiss that followed was incendiary. His hands slid under my shirt, mapping skin with desperate urgency. I arched into him, lost in sensation, in the way he touched me like I was something precious and devastating all at once. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, cursing, he pulled back enough to check it. His expression shifted instantly, from desperate to horrified. What? I asked, trying to steady my breathing. He showed me the screen, a video message, from Calabrese. I watched, stomach sinking, as the footage showed Luca being dragged from a car at the airport, beaten, bloody, terrified. Calabrese's voice narrated over the images. Thank you for the gift, Dante. Your mercy is touching. Unfortunately, mercy doesn't win wars. Consider this my response to your latest moves. Oh, and tell your beautiful fiancée I'm looking forward to meeting her properly. Very soon. The video ended. Dante stood frozen, his hands clenched into fists. He knew we'd let Luca go. He was waiting. How? Because he knows me. Dante's voice was hollow. Knows I've gone soft since taking over. Knows I hesitate now. And he's using it against me. Dante, this isn't your fault. Isn't it? He whirled on me, and I saw something dangerous in his eyes. You made me merciful, Isla. You made me hesitate. And now Luca's dead because I listened to you instead of my instincts. The accusation hit like a physical blow. You can't blame me for trying to save a life. Can I? In this world, mercy gets people killed. I knew that. I've always known that. But you looked at me with those eyes and made me forget. He stepped back, creating distance. This was a mistake. All of it. What was a mistake? Letting Luca live? Or this? I gestured between us. Both. But his voice cracked on the word. I can't do this, Isla. Can't be what you need and survive in this world. I have to choose. Then choose me. I can't. The anguish in his voice was devastating. Don't you understand? If I choose you, I become weak, vulnerable, and my enemies will use that to destroy everything I've built, everyone I protect. So what are you saying? He met my eyes, and I saw the decision there before he spoke. I'm saying this arrangement is temporary. When Calabrese is dealt with, you go free. We end this pretend engagement, and you go back to your life. And if I don't want to, you don't have a choice. His voice was cold now, the warmth gone. This was always business, Isla. A strategic move. Don't confuse protection with love. The words hit like bullets. I slid off the desk, straightening my clothes with shaking hands. You're lying. Am I? Yes. Because I felt how you touched me. Heard how you said my name. You care about me, Dante Moretti. And that terrifies you more than any enemy. He said nothing, just stared at me with those storm cloud eyes. Fine, I said, heading for the door. Push me away. Pretend this was all strategy. But when you're alone at night, remember, you had the chance to be human, and you chose to be a monster instead. I left him standing there, surrounded by scattered papers and shattered possibilities, and I didn't let him see me cry until I reached my room. The attack came at midnight. I woke to the sound of breaking glass and gunfire. For a heartbeat, I thought I was dreaming, reliving the restaurant. Then my door burst open, and Marco was there, gun drawn. Up, now, they're inside the estate. I scrambled from bed, wearing only a t-shirt and shorts. Dante is handling it. My job is getting you to the safe room. He grabbed my arm, pulling me into the hallway. Chaos surrounded us. Guards running, shouting in Italian, more gunfire from below. Marco moved with military precision, checking corners, clearing rooms, his body always between me and potential danger. We were halfway to the safe room when a man appeared at the end of the corridor. Not one of Dante's men. Marco didn't hesitate. He fired. The man dropped. Marco kept moving, pulling me past the body, and I tried not to look at the blood. "Through here," Marco barked, shoving me into a room I didn't recognize. He pressed a hidden panel, and a door opened in the wall, a passage I'd never seen. "Go straight down. The safe room's at the bottom. Code is 0817. Lock it behind you and don't open it for anyone but Dante or me." "Where are you going?" "To help the boss." He was already turning away. "Go! Now!" I ran. The passage was narrow, lit by emergency lights, stairs spiraling down into darkness. I counted steps, 20, 30, 50, my bare feet silent on concrete. Behind me, muffled gunfire continued. Finally, I reached a heavy steel door with a keypad. Fingers shaking, I entered the code. The door opened with a hiss. Inside was a room maybe 20 feet square, windowless, filled with monitors showing different angles of the estate. I watched in horror as the battle unfolded on screens, men fighting through hallways, guards taking positions, blood and broken glass everywhere. Then I saw Dante. He moved through the chaos like death incarnate, gun in one hand, knife in the other, taking down attackers with brutal efficiency. No hesitation, no mercy. This was the man he'd tried to hide from me, the monster who'd been beaten into him by his father. He was magnificent and terrifying. I watched him kill 3 men in as many seconds, then paused to check on a wounded guard. The contrast was devastating, lethal one moment, concern the next. "Boss, East Wing is clear." Marco's voice crackled over speakers. "Good. Pull back to the main entrance. I want them contained." Dante's voice was cold, controlled. "And Marco? Status on Hila?" "Safe. Locked down." A pause. Then, "Good." Just one word, but I heard everything he couldn't say in it. Relief. Fear. Need. The battle lasted 20 more minutes. I watched it all, unable to look away, seeing Dante's world in its rawest form. This was why he'd warned me. Why he'd tried to push me away. Because this violence was constant, inevitable, and anyone close to him drowned in it. Finally, silence fell. On the monitors, I watched Dante survey the aftermath. 8 bodies, all attackers. 3 wounded guards being tended to. Broken windows, bullet holes, blood everywhere. Dante looked directly at one of the cameras. "Isla, it's safe. Come up." I entered the code, climbing back up the stairs on shaking legs. The passage opened into the same room where Marco had pushed me through. Except now, Dante stood there waiting. He was covered in blood. Not his, I realized with relief, but the sight still stole my breath. This was what he'd become to keep me safe. A killer, a monster, everything he'd tried not to be. "You're okay," he said. Not a question. A statement he needed to be true. "I'm fine. It's not mine." He glanced down at his blood-spattered clothes, then back to me. "They sent 12 men. Only 6 made it past the gate. And the ones inside? Dead." No emotion. Just fact. We stood in silence, the enormity of what had just happened pressing down on us. He'd killed to protect me. had become exactly what he feared I'd see. "I watched you," I whispered. "On the monitors." Something flickered across his face. Shame, maybe. "Then you know what I am." "Yes." I stepped closer, ignoring the blood, the death, the danger. "I know you're a man who protected his people, who checked on a wounded guard in the middle of battle, who kills when necessary but never for pleasure." "Isla, you told me this was business, that you didn't care. But I saw your face when Marco said I was safe. I heard your voice." I reached up, cupping his face despite the blood. "You're a terrible liar, Dante Moretti." He closed his eyes, leaning into my touch. "I can't be soft, can't be weak, not in this world." "Then be weak with me. Just me. Let everyone else see the monster, but let me see the man." His hands came up to cover mine, and when he opened his eyes, they were devastated. "You're asking for something I don't know how to give." "Then learn." I pulled him closer. "Because I'm not leaving. I'm not running. And I'm done pretending this is just protection." "What is it then?" "Something real. Something terrifying. Something worth fighting for." He kissed me then, desperate and claiming and utterly raw. Blood and all, death and all. He kissed me like I was air, and he'd been drowning. I tasted copper and need, felt his hands shake as they pulled me against him. "I can't lose you," he breathed against my mouth. "I can't." "Then don't push me." Away. Rosa found us in the hallway an hour later, after the bodies had been removed, and the guards had swept the estate twice more. We were sitting on the floor, my back against the wall, his head in my lap, my fingers carting through his hair. He'd finally let himself break. Not dramatically. Dante Moretti didn't do dramatic, but quietly, the weight of everything crushing down until he couldn't hold it anymore. So he sat with me in the blood-stained hallway and let me be his anchor. "Kara," Rosa said gently, "the doctor should check you both." "We're fine," Dante said without moving. "You're covered in blood, and she's in shock. Neither of you is fine." Rosa's tone brooked no argument. "Come, both of you. Let me take care of you." In the bathroom attached to Dante's room, Rosa helped him out of his ruined clothes while I sat on the counter, wrapped in a blanket. The blood was worse than I'd thought, layered over his arms, his chest, his face. Evidence of violence I'd only seen on screens. "I should go," I said as Rosa left to get supplies. "Let you clean up." "Stay." His voice was rough. "Please." So I stayed, watching as he stood under scalding water, washing away the blood. His scars were more visible wet, reminders that tonight wasn't unique, just another chapter in a lifetime of violence. When he finally emerged, wrapped in a towel, he looked younger, vulnerable, human. "They'll come again," he said quietly. "Calabresi won't stop until one of us is dead. Then we end it, permanently." He looked at me, surprise flickering across his features. "You want me to kill him?" "I want you to survive. If that requires killing him, then yes. That makes you complicit, an accessory." I stopped being innocent the moment I walked through that door. "I've made my choice, Dante. I choose you, whatever that means." He moved toward me, water still dripping from his hair. His hands framed my face with devastating gentleness. "I love you," he said. Simple. Devastating. True. I've been trying not to. Trying to convince myself this was strategy or protection or anything else. But I love you, Isla Chen. And that's the most dangerous thing I've ever admitted. Tears burned my eyes. Why dangerous? Because now Calabresi has the perfect weapon, the perfect leverage. If he can't kill me, he'll kill you. And knowing that, knowing I've put you in more danger by caring, it's tearing me apart. Then we make sure he can't. I pulled him closer, our foreheads touching. We end this war. Together. You understand what that means? What we'll have to do? Yes. And you're okay with it? I thought of the bodies, the blood, the life I'd lost and the one I'd gained. I thought of this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man who'd tried so hard to protect me from himself. I'm okay with anything that keeps us both alive, I said, even if it means becoming something I never thought I'd be. His kiss was soft this time, tender and full of promises neither of us could keep. When he pulled back, his eyes held a determination I recognized. Tomorrow, he said, we go to war. But tonight, can we just be? Yes. So we crawled into his bed, me in one of his shirts, him in boxers, and held each other while sirens wailed in the distance and guards patrolled outside. We didn't make love, didn't need to, just existed in the same space, breathing the same air, pretending for a few stolen hours that the world outside didn't want us dead. And in the darkness, surrounded by danger and uncertainty, I realized something profound. I'd stopped being Dante Moretti's captive somewhere along the way. I'd become his partner, and together, we were going to burn down anyone who tried to tear us apart. The plan came together over 3 days. Dante, Marco, and I sat in the study, mapping out Calabresi's weaknesses. His casino, his construction fronts, his political connections, everything he'd built over decades, we planned to dismantle in a single night. It has to be simultaneous, Dante explained, moving pieces on a physical map like chess. We hit every operation at once, seize the casino funds, expose the construction corruption, release evidence to the press. By dawn, Salvatore Calabresi will be destroyed financially and legally. And Matteo? I asked. Dante's expression hardened. Matteo's mine. Marco shifted uncomfortably. Boss, you know this means exposing ourselves too. Once we release those documents, law enforcement will come after everyone, including us. I know. Dante had clearly already calculated this cost. But I've been building a legitimate empire alongside the illegal one. Real estate, investments, technology. Once the war is over, we transition fully. Go clean. Because of her, Marco said, not unkindly. He glanced at me. You're really going to walk away from all this? For her? Dante looked at me, and something in his eyes made my breath catch. Yes. The weight of that decision settled over the room. He was choosing me over an empire, over a legacy, over everything his family had built. When? I asked. Tomorrow night. Calabresi is hosting a gala at his casino, a fundraiser for some politician he owns. Half the city's elite will be there. Dante pulled out a blueprint. Security will be focused on the event. That's when we strike everywhere else. And Marco? Yeah, boss? I need you to take Isla somewhere safe. The cabin upstate. She doesn't need to be in the city when this goes down. No? The word came out fierce. I'm not hiding. Isla? You said we're partners. That means I'm here for all of it, including the dangerous parts. Dante's jaw tightened. You don't need to be there for the endgame. Yes, I do. I moved around the table, standing directly in front of him. Because if something goes wrong, if you don't make it back, I need to know I was there. That I didn't hide while you risked everything. Nothing is going to happen to me. You can't promise that. We stared at each other, the argument hovering unspoken between us. Finally, Marco cleared his throat. Boss, maybe she's right. Having her at the gala keeps up appearances. Makes it look like we're confident, not preparing for war. Dante looked between us, clearly torn. Then he sighed. Fine. But you stay with Marco the entire time. You don't leave his side for a second. Agreed. That night, unable to sleep, I found Dante in his office. He sat behind his desk, surrounded by documents, looking every inch the crime lord planning his final war. Can't sleep? He asked without looking up. Too much adrenaline? I closed the door behind me. Also, I wanted to give you something. I pulled out a small photo album I'd been working on secretly. Inside were images I'd taken over the past weeks, candid shots of him in the garden, at breakfast, standing by windows with light illuminating his profile. Moments when he'd looked almost peaceful. He flipped through slowly, his expression unreadable. "Why?" he finally asked. "Because if tomorrow goes wrong, I wanted you to have proof that someone saw you. Not the mob boss or the killer or the empire. Just you. The man who drinks his coffee too strong and reads philosophy before bed and looks at the stars like he's trying to find answers." His hands trembled slightly. "Isla, I love you," I said, the words coming easier now. "I know it's insane. I know it's only been weeks, but I love you, Dante Moretti. All of you. Even the parts you think are unlovable." He stood, moving around the desk with that lethal grace. When he reached me, his hands framed my face with devastating gentleness. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Probably not, but you have me anyway." The kiss was different this time, slow and thorough, like he was memorizing me. His hands moved down my body with reverent care, and when he lifted me, carrying me to the leather couch, I didn't protest. "Are you sure?" he asked, hovering above me. I've never been more sure of anything. What followed was both tender and desperate. Two people trying to fit a lifetime of connection into a single night. He touched me like I was precious and devastating all at once. His scars pressed against my skin, his breath ragged in my ear. We made love surrounded by maps of war, and it felt like the most honest thing we'd ever done. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "If something happens tomorrow," he said quietly, "there's a safe deposit box. Keys in the third drawer of my desk. Everything you need is inside. Money, documents, a new identity if necessary. Dante? Just listen." His arms tightened around me. "If I don't make it, Marco will get you out. You'll be set up somewhere safe. London, maybe, or Singapore. Far from this world. I don't want to run. I know. But promise me anyway. Promise me that if the worst happens, you'll survive." I tilted my head up to look at him. In the dim light, his eyes were silver and absolutely serious. "Only if you promise the same," I said. "That you'll do whatever it takes to come back to me." "I promise." We sealed it with a kiss, both of us knowing promises made in the darkness were the hardest to keep. The day of the gala arrived too quickly. Gianna returned to transform me again, this time into something more dangerous. The dress was blood-red silk, cut low and elegant, designed to make a statement. The diamonds at my throat were real, borrowed from another Moretti vault. "You look like a queen going to war," Gianna pronounced with satisfaction. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being the photographer who'd walked through the wrong door. I'd become someone else, someone harder, sharper, capable of standing beside Dante Moretti without flinching. Dante appeared in the doorway, stopping short when he saw me. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my car, his hair styled back, looking every inch the legitimate businessman. But I saw the gun holstered beneath his jacket, the earpiece in his ear, the cold calculation in his eyes. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." The drive to the casino was silent, tension thick in the air. Marco drove, constantly checking mirrors, while two other cars full of guards flanked us. In the distance, I knew other teams were moving into position, ready to strike the moment Dante gave the word. The casino blazed with light, a monument to Calabrese wealth. Luxury cars filled the entrance, guests in formal wear streaming inside. It looked like any high society event. Except tonight, it would become a battlefield. Dante's hand found mine in the car. Stay close to Marco. If shooting starts, he gets you out. No arguments. Dante, please. He looked at me, and I saw fear flicker behind the control. I can't do this if I'm worried about you. Then don't worry. Trust that I'll be smart, that I'll survive. He kissed me, quick and fierce. Then we were pulling up to the entrance. Showtime. We exited the car, Dante's hand at the small of my back, playing the devoted couple. Cameras flashed. People stared. I kept my head high, remembering everything Marco had taught me about projecting confidence. Inside, the casino glittered. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, beautifully dressed people holding champagne and secrets. We moved through the crowd, Dante introducing me to faces I'd learned to recognize. Allies, enemies, opportunists. Then I saw him, Matteo Calabresi, standing by the bar with his father Salvatore. Both men watched our approach with predatory interest. Dante, Salvatore called, his voice carrying across the noise. So glad you could make it. And with your beautiful fiancée. How brave of you both to attend. Salvatore. Dante's tone was cordial, but I felt the tension in his body. Thank you for the invitation. Of course. One should always keep one's enemies close, don't you think? Salvatore's smile didn't reach his eyes. He turned to me. Miss Chen, you're even lovelier in person. Tell me, has Dante explained what happens to people who get too close to him? He's mentioned it, I said, keeping my voice steady. Though from what I understand, the real danger comes from people like you. Silence rippled outward. Several people stopped talking, sensing confrontation. Salvatore's smile widened. Interesting. Dante, your fiancée has spirit. I can see why you've kept her despite the complications. She's not a complication, Dante said quietly. She's my future. Which means she's untouchable. Is she? Matteo stepped forward, and I saw the same dead eyes from the engagement party. Because from where I stand, she looks very touchable. Marco's hand moved toward his jacket, but Dante stopped him with a subtle gesture. Careful, Matteo, Dante said, his voice dropping to something lethal. Threats against what's mine have consequences. Is that so? Salvatore gestured around the room. You're outnumbered here, Dante. Surrounded by my people, my security. If I wanted, I could end this right now. Dante smiled, cold and dangerous. So could I. Then everything happened at once. Dante's phone vibrated. Marco's earpiece crackled. Across the city, I knew. Teams were moving, seizing properties, releasing documents, dismantling an empire. Salvatore's phone rang. Then Matteo's. Then half the rooms. Confusion rippled through the crowd as people answered calls, their expressions shifting from confident to horrified. What have you done? Salvatore breathed, staring at his phone. Dante's smile was terrible. What I should have done years ago. I've ended you, Salvatore. Tonight, the entire city sees what you really are. By morning, you'll be arrested. Your empire, your legacy, gone. You're dead, Matteo snarled, reaching for a weapon. But Marco was faster, gun drawn, pointed directly at Matteo's head. I wouldn't, Marco said calmly. The casino descended into chaos. People screaming, running, security drawing weapons. In the midst of it all, Dante grabbed my hand. Time to go, he said. And we ran. The gunfight erupted as we hit the casino floor. Calabresi's security opened fire, forcing us to take cover behind slot machines. Marco returned fire, creating a path toward the exit while more of Dante's men flooded in through side entrances. Go! Marco shouted, pushing me toward Dante. Get her out! Dante pulled me through the chaos, his body shielding mine as bullets shattered glass and marble. We burst through an emergency exit into a service corridor, alarms blaring. Behind us, I heard Marco and the others holding the line. "This way," Dante directed, pulling me down the corridor toward a loading dock. His car screeched up, not the limo, but an armored SUV, driver at the ready. We were almost there when Matteo appeared. Blood streamed from a cut above his eye, his gun raised, eyes full of murder. "Going somewhere?" Dante pushed me, behind him. "This is between us, Matteo. Let her go." "No." Matteo's gun swung toward me. "I want you to watch her die. Want you to feel what you've done to my family." Time slowed. I saw Matteo's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Dante reach for his weapon. Knew neither would be fast enough. The explosion shook the building. Not a gunshot. Something bigger. The sound of our teams hitting the casino's vault, I realized. The distraction we'd planned but hadn't needed to use. Matteo flinched, looking away for a split second. Dante didn't hesitate. He moved like death itself, closing the distance, knocking the gun aside, driving his knife into Matteo's chest with brutal precision. Once, twice, 3 times. Matteo dropped, blood spreading across expensive marble. "Run!" Dante said, grabbing my hand again. We reached the SUV, throwing ourselves inside. The driver floored it, tires squealing as we shot away from the casino. Behind us, police sirens wailed, growing closer. "Where?" the driver asked. "The marina," Dante said. "Boats waiting." I looked at him, this man covered in another man's blood, and saw no remorse. Just cold calculation. "You killed him," I whispered. "Yes." He met my eyes. "And I'd do it again. He threatened you. That sealed his fate." The marina was dark and quiet, most boats already gone for the season. Dante led me to a yacht I didn't recognize, sleek and powerful, ready to leave at a moment's notice. "Where are we going?" I asked as he helped me aboard. "North, then overseas. I have properties in Italy, safe houses where Calabresi's reach doesn't extend." He moved to the helm, starting the engine. "We'll stay there until things cool down, until the legal aftermath settles." "And then?" He looked at me, and for the first time all night, his expression softened. "Then we decide who we want to be. Together." The yacht pulled away from the dock as police cars flooded the casino behind us. I watched the city lights fade, thinking of everything I was leaving. My apartment, my business, the life I'd built. "Any regrets?" Dante asked quietly. I moved to stand beside him, his arm coming around my waist automatically. "About which part?" "All of it. Walking through that door, staying, choosing this." I thought about it, really thought about it. The fear, the violence, the impossible choices, but also the way he looked at me like I mattered, the way he'd changed his entire world to keep me safe, the way I felt alive in his presence. "No," I said finally. "No regrets." He kissed my temple. "Good, because I have about 1,000. "Such as?" "Not seeing you sooner, not protecting you better, almost pushing you away." He turned to face me fully, the yacht on autopilot, the ocean stretching dark around us. "Isla Chen, will you marry me? For real this time, not for show or strategy. Just because I love you and I can't imagine facing tomorrow without you." I looked at him, this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man, and realized the answer had been inevitable from the moment our eyes first met. Yes. 3 months later. The villa in Tuscany was everything Dante had promised. Peaceful, secure, and impossibly beautiful. Vineyards stretched toward the horizon. Old stone walls held centuries of secrets, and for the first time in months, I could breathe without fear. The news from home trickled in slowly. Salvatore Calabrese had been arrested, his empire dismantled. Matteo's death ruled self-defense. Dante's businesses, the legitimate ones, continued thriving under Marco's management. We disappeared successfully, letting the world believe we were on an extended honeymoon while things settled. Package arrived, Dante called from the kitchen, where he'd been attempting to make pasta like the locals showed him. I found him holding a small box, my camera bag beside it. He'd had someone retrieve my equipment, along with a few personal items. "Open it," he said. Inside was a new lens, professional grade, expensive, perfect for the landscape photography I'd been doing. And beneath it, a note in Rosa's handwriting. "Kara, your apartment is safe. Your business is thriving. I've been fielding calls. When you're ready to come home, everything will be waiting. But take your time. Some love stories need distance to become clear." Rosa, tears pricked my eyes. "She's been managing my business?" "She and Marco. Turns out your assistant was very understanding about the extended honeymoon." Dante pulled me into his arms. "You can go back whenever you want. The legal issues are mostly resolved. We're in the clear." "And you? Can you go back?" "To the old life? No, that's done." He looked out at the vineyards, peace settling over his features. "But to the city? To building something legitimate?" "Yes. If you want to." I thought about it. The city held my art, my clients, my career. But this villa, this peace, this version of Dante who smiled easier and slept through the night, this felt like home. "What if we split time?" I suggested. "Spend summers here, winters in the city, build a life that's ours, not anyone else's definition." He smiled, full and genuine, the smile I'd worked months to earn. "I like that plan." We married quietly in the villa's garden 3 weeks later. No grand ceremony, no guests beyond Rosa and Marco who flew in to witness. Just us, the priest, and promises we actually meant. I wore a simple white dress I'd found in the village. Dante wore linen, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. When he slid the ring onto my finger, his grandmother's sapphire, the one I'd worn as costume jewelry, it felt different. Real. Permanent. "I love you," he said, the words coming easy now. "I love you too. Even though you're still terrible at making pasta." He laughed, pulling me close. "Good thing I have a lifetime to improve." That night, we made love in our bedroom overlooking the vineyards, windows open to let in starlight and the smell of grapes. No urgency, no fear, no world trying to tear us apart. Just us, learning each other all over again without the weight of danger. Later, as I lay in his arms, I thought about that night. The wrong door, the right moment, the impossible choice that had led to everything. "Do you believe in fate now?" I asked quietly. Dante's fingers traced patterns on my bare shoulder. "I believe in decisions, in choosing to stay when you could have run, in fighting for something better than what we were given." He kissed my forehead. "But if fate put you through that door, then I'm grateful to whatever force brought you to me." 6 months later. My first gallery showing in the city was small but significant. Photographs from Italy, landscapes and candid shots of life in the villa. Dante stood beside me, his hand at the small of my back, as critics and buyers circulated through the space. "You're talented," a woman said, studying a photo of sunrise over the vineyards. "These have real emotion. Like you were capturing home." "I was," I replied, glancing at Dante. Across the room I saw Marco arrive with Rosa, both dressed formally, both smiling. My assistant waved, clearly excited about the turnout. Normal people, living normal lives, far from bullets and blood. "Mr. Moretti," a reporter approached, notebook ready. "There were rumors about your early retirement. Care to comment?" "No retirement," Dante said smoothly. "Just a career shift. I'm focusing on legitimate investments now. Real estate, technology, art." He gestured around the gallery. Supporting talent like my wife's. After the reporter left, I turned to him. Supporting talent? That's what you call this? Among other things. He pulled me close despite the watching crowd. Mostly I call it being married to the most talented, stubborn, beautiful woman I've ever met. Flattery won't get you out of your pasta lesson later. Worth a try? That night, back in our restored city apartment, I developed photos from the gallery. Faces, moments, the life we'd built from ashes. Dante worked on his laptop nearby, handling legitimate business with the same intensity he'd once applied to crime. Isla, he called. Come look at this. I moved to peer over his shoulder. On his screen was a proposal, a foundation for supporting trafficking survivors, using Moretti resources to help women rebuild their lives. What do you think? He asked. I looked at this man who'd transformed himself, who'd chosen to be better than his legacy demanded, who'd turned protection into love and violence into peace. I think, I said slowly, that you're exactly who I thought you were that first night. Someone dangerous and beautiful and capable of extraordinary things. He pulled me into his lap, his arms wrapping around me. Only because you made me believe I could be. We sat together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights through windows that no longer needed bulletproof glass, surrounded by a life we'd built from impossible choices and unexpected love. I'd walked through the wrong door that night and found exactly where I was meant to be.